Alright, hi. NATO PFP Unclassified AJP-4-4A1 Allied Joint Movement and Transportation Doctrine, December 2005. This page is intentionally left blank. Northern Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO Standard Agency, NATO Letter of Promulgation. The Allied Joint Movement of the Transportation Doctrine is the NATO PFP unclassified publication of the Agreement of the Nations. To use this publication is recorded in Stagnant, Stanig 2506. The Allied Joint Movement of Transportation document is effective upon receipt. It supersedes the AGP 44, which shall be destroyed in accordance with local procedure for the destruction of documents. JM Mage Brigade Generator, Brigadier General. This page is intentionally left blank. Record of reservations, unclassified. Record of changes. Alright, Chapter 1, NATO Principles, Policy for Movement of Transportation, Introduction, Background, Purpose, Scope, Principles and Policies. M&T Organization, Responsible Organization, Relationship, Purposes, General, NATO, M&T Structure, National M&T Structure, Sending National Support Element, Host Nation, National Movement Coordinated with the Century, Lead Nation, NATO, and MT Structure. NATO Headquarters Agency, Allied Command, Transportation, Allied Command, Operations, Allied Movement of the Coordinated with the Century, Reaction Force of Air Staff, Joint Force of Command, CJ4, MNT Staff, Headquarters Land, the MNT Staff, Headquarters Combined, Joint Task Force and Joint Theater Movement Staff, Movement and Transportation Coordinated Cell, Regional Aircraft, Airlift Coordinated Century, Land and Component Command with the MNT Staff, Maritime Command, Component Command, Advanced Logistics Support System, Forward Logistics Site. Chapter 3, the Planning Guidance Purpose Definition, M&T Planning for the Operational Planning Process, Planning Tool, Sequence Planning, Deployment, Planning and Process, Contingency Plan. Chapter 4, Cooperative and Shared Use Transportation Resources, Purpose of Cooperative and Shared Use Bilateral Agreements, Cooperative Use of Air and Sea Lift. Chapter 5, Sea Transportation Purpose, General Characteristics, Military, Sea Transportation, Civil, Seas Transportation, Request for Civil Expertise and Assistance. Chapter 6, Air Transportation, Purpose, General Characteristics, Military, Air Transportation, Civil Aviation Assets, Request for Civil Assistance. Chapter 7, Inland Surface Transportation, Purpose, General Characteristics, Requesting Civil Assistance. Chapter 8, Civil Transportation, Expert Support, Deployment, Planning Sequence, Planning Board of the Ocean Ship and the Civil Aviation Planning Committee, Planning Board of the Inland Surface Transportation. Chapter 9, M&T Information Exchange and Deploying, Sustainment, Redeploying, Purpose Level, MT Information Exchange, MT Information Exchange Principles, NATO and M&T Information Exchange, Bi- and Multiple Lateral Information Exchange, National Reporting in Theater Information Exchange, Consignment, Tracking, and Transit Visibility Information Exchange Example. Chapter 10, Host Nation Support Consideration, MT and Planning, Purpose General Host Nation Support Concept, Host Nation Support Consideration, and MT Planning, Movement and Transportation Aspect, Reception and Staging, Onward Movement, or RSOM. Background Definition, Purpose and Scope, Movement and Transportation of the Reception, Stagnant, Onward Movement Principles. General Host Nation Authority coordinated with the integrated with the planning process, synchronization, optimum logistic footprint. Section 3, planning process, operational planning process, deployment planning process, aspects of impact of the reception stagnant, onward movement, or the phases of reception stagging, onward movement, authority, general organization, task, responsibility, process, general reception, staging, onward movement. Annex Allied Deployed Movement Introduction Aim Movement and Transportation Policy and regarding the use of atoms, description of atoms, modules, procedures, data management principle, data management, and its distribution, configuration, controls, management, task and responsibility of the NATO support organization. Annex B, bilateral arrangement of cooperative use of the air and sea lift. Appendix 1, bilateral agreement hierarchy. Bilateral agreement hierarchy, simplified comprehensive template of the Memorandum of Understanding Agreement concerning for the provision of multiple logistic support. Template of the technical arrangement considering provisions. Annex A to template TA, financial aspect. Annex C for the template TA. Principal procedure given with the provision of airlift support. Appendix 1 to Appendix C for the template TA coordinated the board. Appendix 7, Appendix D, the template TA, principles, procedures governing provision of the sea lift transportation. Appendix 1 for the D, Appendix D, template of TA coordinated board. Appendix 2 and Appendix D for the template TA, template for sea lift glossary, or abbreviation glossary terms and definitions, movement and training publication, reference publication, list of effective pages. Chapter 1, NATO Principle for the Policy for the Movement and Transportation. Introduction, background. NATO has enhanced mission spectrum for the widening and involved extensively the use of the movement and transportation within the NATO area of responsibility and beyond. NATO principles, policy, and movement of the transportation states is essential for the alliance military to the credibility that have capability exist through inter-ally multiple national cooperation to deploy forces in a timely manner in order to undertake the full spectrum of alliance's roles and missions that supply with the transportation, sustainment, resupply, redeployment, and response to the situation. Allied joint publication for an Allied joint logistic doctrine with developing logistic movement of the transportation medical doctrine. However, the more detail required for the expanding mission task, responsibility, procedure of the movement and transportation of the staff and expected to meet the Article 5 of the non-Article 5 crisis response operations, such as the Allied Joint Publication of 44A. The Allied Joint Movement and Transportation Doctrine was developed to assist nations in NATO to operate combined with the joint movement and transportation environment. 2. The purpose of the Allied Joint Publication of the 44A to provide guidance for the movement and transportation doctrine procedure for the Article 5, non-Article 5 is crisis response operations, support to strategic command, defense concepts, support concepts, operational planning system. MC 336.2 served as a principal guideline for developing information herein. 103. The publication applicable to the full spectrum of national operations exercises including the conduct of the operation of the United Nations, European Union, and the Organization in the Security and Cooperation in Europe. It is also applicable to the non-NATO nations participating in the NATO-led operation and exercises. Section 2, Principles and Policies. Principles. The main principles of MC 319.2 and 336.2 applicable to the movement and training transportation doctrine of the collective responsibility of NATO nations have collective responsibility for movement and transportation support. The responsibility extends into the initial movement and transportation planning through the strategic deployment, reception, staging, onward movement, sustaining redeployment, phasing of operation. NATO commanders' appropriate levels are responsible for establishing movement and transportation requirements and initiating the prioritizing, coordinating deconflicting materials. Nations are responsible for obtaining transportation resources to deploy, sustaining, and redeploying their forces. The NATO is responsible for the movement of the NATO-owned equipment and the necessity included with the headquarters elements of the NATO-led operations. Cooperation between the NATO and national authorities, both the military and civilian, in the area of the movement and the transportation essential can be either bi- or multilateral nature, incorporates with the cooperative shared use of lift assets. Flexible simplicity. The movement and transportation plans procedures shall be simply and flexible to allow change during the execution. Standardization can facilitate successful mode of movement and transportation. Standardization can covers equipment, processes, procedures, systems, and training. Information sharing, exchanging the movement of the transportation information between NATO and national military civil authorities, and important for the efficient planning of the execution of movement and transportation task. The execution of the national responsibility to obtain the sufficient movement and transportation resources could be hampered with the shortage of the required lift assets. Consequently, nations should be aware and possible surplus lifting capacity available to cooperative and shared use. Chapter 2, Motive and Transportation Organization.